Hi BookTube, this is the Big Book Phobia Tag.
I got my ticket for the long way round. 2 bottle whiskey for the way.
I was tagged by the tag's creator, who is Liz, over at Liz's Book Buffet. And please go check her out. She does some fabulous stuff. She really does. She talks about a whole variety of subjects. And this month you can get a daily dose of her because she's doing the vlog every day in April. She really does talk about some really interesting stuff. And she reads a pretty good variety of things, mostly adult fiction, which I appreciate because all I read is YA and, new adult, and she kind of dabbles in a little bit of that, but most of what she reads is more adult fiction. And so I'm always glad to hear what she thinks about any number of books that she's read, because I don't normally read that genre. If you do read that genre, you'll love what she has to say, and if not, you might get some new ideas like I do. Go check her out. The link for her is in the description. Okay, so the point of this tag is to choose 5 monster books with 500 pages or more that you're afraid to read because of the size, and then choose 5 small books which are 300 pages or less that you have read and why you like them. So I am going to jump in with a big book, and that is The Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley. This book is 876 pages. It is huge. It's huge. It's also about Arthurian legend, which does not really thrill me. The reason I actually have this book, I got it so that I could tear it up and make bookmarks out of it. I didn't care about the subject matter when I picked it up at Goodwill. I just cared about the size of the font inside. Well, then I mentioned that I had gotten it, and a friend of mine on Goodreads said, "Oh my gosh, that was my favorite book in high school, and I wore it out, and you can't cut it up, you've got to read it." Well, the thing that appeals to me about it now are 2 things. First of all, it's about the women of Camelot and all of that. And also, Nicole at Nicole's Adventures in Science Fiction recently did her top 10 fantasy books which feature women as main protagonists, and she talked about this one. So, maybe it's worth it. But it is a lot of pages about stuff I'm not really wild about. So we'll see if I get to this. And it's in my TBR jar, so it is somewhere in my future, but I make no guarantees about loving it. And it kind of does scare me. A small book that I really loved was The Adoration of Jenna by Mary E. Pearson. This is a book about biotechnology and ethics. And it's a YA novel, but really the themes in it are all about how much is too much. How far should we go to extend a person's life, and how much artificial technology should we use to do that? And really, what constitutes the real essence of a person? It's only 265 pages, so it's a quick read, and I listened to it on audio, and it was narrated by my favorite narrator, who is Jenna. On to another big book that scares me, and that would be The Angel's Game by Carlos Ruiz Zafon. Oh, it kind of scares me because it's adult fiction. I don't normally read adult fiction. It's not that I never read adult fiction. I do. I have a lot in the past. It's just, I don't know. He is a phenomenal author, so I guess it'll be okay. But this book has 531 pages, so it's not a massively huge book, but it's a big book for something I'm not too sure about, so we'll see. Now, a small book that I like that is a new adult contemporary is The Vincent Boys by Abbi Glines. Abbi Glines writes books like, oh my gosh, so fast. She just whips them out like ba-bam. And they're just like candy, and I like them. I like them a lot. I met her and I liked her a lot. She was very funny and just a delightful person. She writes a lot of this kind of stuff, and this is, your basic boy meets girl, boy can't have girls, it's like all of that. And it's just a fun read, and it's only 259 pages, which makes it really nice because you can speed through it, and it seriously is like candy. If you just need a piece of candy, a piece of chocolate, this is your book. Yeah. This next book is actually 2 books that I have that really kind of terrify me. They really do. And they are Eon and Eona. They are both by Allison Goodman. Eon comes in at 531 pages, and Eona is a whopping 637 pages. So these books, the reason that they scare me is that they are fantasy. I don't read fantasy, generally speaking. You know, along the fictional genres, I stick more with post-apocalyptic dystopia. But I'm not completely opposed to fantasy. But they're so big. Why is it that fantasy books have to be so huge? Because they typically are. I mean, honestly, if you go to the fantasy section of any bookstore, every book, even the mass market paperbacks, are all really thick. So I don't know. It does kind of scare me. On the other hand, I love the Chronicles of Narnia. Those are my Harry Potter. And I loved, out of that series, The Horse and His Boy. This is 224 pages, so it is a very quick read, and it is just a fairy tale. I love this because it's kind of got an Arabian Nights feel to it. And I could read it again and again. And it, like I say, it's only 224 pages, so it's a very quick read. A book that is big, but is completely unfoundedly big, is The Invention of Hugo Cabret. This is 524 pages, but honestly, about half of it is illustration. Even the text, there's just not much text on the page. So it had scared me for a long time until I realized that it was full of illustrations. This is by Brian Selznick. I loved the movie, so I have a feeling I will love the book. And I'm not going to be nearly as daunted now that I've realized it's not quite so big. In that same kind of vein is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. Now this book is 105 pages, but like I say, some of it is illustration. So if you take those out, it's probably less than 100 pages. You can sit down and read this in about an hour. It's all about grief and coping and how a young boy is unsure of his future. So, great little book with wonderful themes in it. Okay, I'm just going to get this out of the way. Okay, Harry Potter, and this one is The Goblet of Fire. I have not read the Harry Potter series completely. This book is 724 pages. I am just not drawn in by Harry Potter. Obviously, I have not read enough Harry Potter to enjoy it. So, you know, I have to say that part of the non-appeal for me is the size of the books. I think this is book 4. So, book 4, 5, 6, and 7 are monsters. They're huge. I am committed to reading them, but they're big books. Hopefully they'll draw me in and I will power speed through them. So, we'll see. And lastly, a sweet little book that I loved, only 275 pages, is The Skies Everywhere by Jandy Nelson. This is about a girl who has a unique family situation, and she's very close to her sister, and her sister kind of drops dead one day from a heart condition. So our main character is trying to cope with that, and the romance is very sweet, but the thing that makes the story unique is that the way that this girl copes with her sister's death is to take little slips of paper and jot down feelings on them. And then she just wads them up or folds them up and puts them anywhere, drops them. On the cover it says, one boy helps her remember, the other lets her forget. And that's very appropriate for the story. So, yeah, great little book. Now, you know I couldn't get through this tag without cheating, because I always cheat. Yeah. So I have to say that I am going to join in with the rest of everyone who has done this tag and say that I have 2 books on audio that I also want to add in. One is George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones. We all know how massive these books are, and everybody who's done this tag has said the George R.R. Martin Song of Ice and Fire books are massive. And that scares me because, again, you know, it's a genre that I don't normally read. Well, these books are so good that I think I want to read them. But on audio, Game of Thrones is 33 hours and 45 minutes of listening time. That is like, what is that, like a day and a half? And it's not the biggest book that I've ever read. Diana Gabaldon's Outlander series, those are really long. So, yeah, it's just a big book, and it kind of does scare me a little bit. On the other hand, I have not read a little book by Jerry Spinelli called Stargirl, which is 4.5 hours of listening time. That is nothing. That is nothing. For me, that's a drive. That's a car ride. That's a sweet little middle grade book that I've had on my list for a long time, and so I'm looking forward to it, and especially now that I know it's only 4 hours of listening. So those are all of the books that I am on the one hand scared of, and on the other hand glad that I sped through because they were just so short and nice. I will tag some people to do this tag. If you haven't been tagged, you should try and do this tag because it's really interesting to try and find these books. I had a bit of a hard time because most of the books in the genre that I love were too long. They were 300 plus pages, so I couldn't really include them. Anyway, that's it for now from me, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.
When I'm gone, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my walk. You're gonna miss me by my talk. Oh, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone.